Bodine buckles me in. He strapped me in, and I put the helmet on, and he looks at me and he puts the net up, and he said, "Roy, don't wreck this race car." And I took off down pit road. It was absolutely amazing.
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to episode number 117 of Let's Go Racing with David Starr. Tyler Jones here with you. So glad to have you with us. Got a big show on tap today. We're going to be joined by Roy Oliver, former NASCAR crewman for Geoff Bodine. He's got quite a fascinating story that we'll share when he joins us coming up later on. Plus, we'll have our news and notes with the latest happenings around the NASCAR community as we gear up for the first ever NASCAR street race coming up this weekend from Chicago. And we'll have our Ask David segment coming up at the end of today's show. David Starr back with us after the week off last week. David and I were in Nashville this weekend. And David, we'll dive into the Nashville race in just a second when we bring in Dominic. But first off, on your front, I got to tell you, David, you know, just as your friend, not even your colleague or co-host, I was just excited to see my friend David Starr back on the racetrack again and smile on your face and the enthusiasm and everything. I know it'd been several weeks since you'd raced, but how was that? Just getting back in the race car, making the race and being a part of it and completing all the laps there on a Saturday, David?
Oh man, it was awesome. You know, it was awesome. It's, you know, I didn't realize that we ran Daytona and then we went to California. Then, you know, my racing school got so busy. I didn't realize it was 4 months since we raced in Fontana. And, but man, it felt good inside the race car, no doubt about it. You know, when you do it week in and week out and then you skip 4 months, it's kind of tough, you know. So, but it was a lot of fun. Enjoyed it. Yeah,
no doubt about it. Dominic Aragon joins us right now. Dominic, I know you weren't out there with us in Nashville, but I got to tell you, Sunday was, I thought, a fun race. I know there wasn't a lot of cautions, and some people will sit there and say, you know, hey, it needs more action, needs more wrecks here and there. But I got to tell you, it was fun, aggressive racing with a lot of passing. Came down right to the very end. You know, we mentioned not a lot of cautions, a lot of green flag laps there. Ultimately, Ross Chastain gets the job done. Big win for Ross to finally break through and get back to victory lane. We know Trackhouse been fast all year long. It was only a matter of time.
Only a matter of time. It was a little more than a year for Ross to get back to victory lane in the Cup Series, but he did it in such a dominating fashion, winning his first Cup Series career pole, backing that up with all the stage points he accumulated, leading the most laps, taking the checkered flag for his third career win. Certainly, maybe not a popular win amongst the fans, but I think it says a lot with the naysayers. Hey, Ross Chastain can get it done past the road course, past a bump and run at a road course event, a restricted plate event, and actually got and dominate a race. And we've seen Ross muscle his way up to the front last year, this year, lead a bunch of laps, maybe just not close out the deal in a dominating fashion. He certainly did that on Sunday.
And he ran a clean race, too, something that we haven't mentioned a whole lot with Ross Chastain. So that in itself was, I think, a big accomplishment, not just a win, but a clean win at that. David, want to get your insights here. You know, as I was watching the race, one of the things that stood out to me all night long, the leader could never pull away. Even Ross Chastain, for as much as the laps that he led, he was never getting that far out across the rest of the field. You saw Martin Truex make a run there towards the end. May have been a different result had the race gone to overtime. Very competitive. I love just the way that race went, it was not only clean racing, but it was not predictable. There was just, I know that Dominic, mentioned how Ross led the most laps and all that, but I mean, a number of guys were capable of winning this race. I thought I love the parity we saw on Sunday night.
Man, it was a great race. Obviously didn't have as much afternoon, but it was very competitive. You know, when you got three wide, maybe two or three rows deep, but first three wide for 2 or 3 laps, I'll tell you what, it doesn't get much better than that, Ross Chastain had dominant cars, but there were several other cars that were really good. One of them comes to mind. Reddick's car was really fast, Unfortunate. He had a pit. I don't know if there was a malfunction with the pit gun, but obviously they didn't get the one. And coming off turn 3, going into turn 3, he felt something out coming back to pit road and lost a tire, which messed up the aero there underneath the car. So he wasn't a threat after that, but he was looked like the one car 19 and Tyler Reddick and I throw Kevin Harvick in there. Had luck. We watched him as the race progressed. He got stronger and stronger. It was amazing. I think he had just moved into 3rd place or 4th when he had a flat tire, which took him out of the race. But man, what a clean race. It was a quick race. We saw the top 3 cars, Ross Chastain, Martin Truex Jr., and were the class of the fields. And like I said, Ross had them covered at the end. It seemed like on the long Ross's cars, you talk. I was really impressed with Truex at the end. I thought the race played out when the guys were, when the losing fuel load and the tires were wore out, it was real consistent, didn't lose much speed. But at the end, Truex that way. They had made some good adjustments. But man, it was a popular win and a great race, and it was fun to be there.
Yeah, it was, no doubt about it. Dominic, one more thing before we bring our guest into the show. Let me ask you this. Nashville sellout crowd on Sunday, of 50,000 plus in the grandstands. We mentioned a great, exciting race, first race of the NBC season and everything here. I think when you talk about the future, you can't talk about the future of this sport without Nashville being involved here. I know that we mentioned with Dustin Long here last week about the idea of the fairgrounds, and there was a big Save the Fairgrounds campaign there at the track this weekend. And we know IndyCar does their own street race in the streets of Nashville, which has been a big hit as well. Music City, home of country music in America, one of the fastest growing cities in the country. This has been a match made in heaven. I seen NASCAR and Nashville being together in some way, shape, and form for a very long time here.
It's a great marriage, and it was something that wasn't there for a long time, too. We know the Cup Series used to run there in the 70s and the 80s, and we saw that absence with the Xfinity Series and Truck Series. And it's good to see Nashville Superspeedway having its triple header weekend, but no matter if it's the Superspeedway or the Fairgrounds, or even, like you said, open wheel and IndyCar, and even our friend Joseph Wooten of the Steve Miller Band on our show a few weeks ago, just describing the hype around Nashville Superspeedway and going for the first time as a fan, you can tell there's just something different about Nashville in that market. And when you look at the ratings too for NASCAR races and they break down each market, Nashville is usually in the top 10, if not the top 5 of the most watched per demographic per area. It's a big NASCAR market. We're here to stay in Nashville.
Yeah. You got the awards banquet there as well. All over Broadway, banners and signs up about the race. Everybody was talking about the race. It was a big deal. So I enjoyed it. Dave and I had a great time. Dominic, tell us about our guest this week and bring him in for us.
Hey, I'm really excited to have Roy on our show this week. Roy Oliver, excuse me. He is a cool dude. He is like the coolest race fan who got the coolest opportunity to get an opportunity with a NASCAR team in the 1990s. Roy Oliver, and we're going to let him tell his story more, but just to kind of give you the Cliff Notes version here, Roy was a longtime Geoff Bodine fan, ended up getting to know Geoff. Geoff ultimately offers him a spot on his team in the 1994 campaign, the year Geoff won multiple races, the All-Star race, etc. We're going to hear about Roy's journey through the sport. They can make a movie, if not at least a book, on Roy's experiences coming from the northeastern part of the United States, moving down to North Carolina, and becoming a part of the sport and the traveling circus that is NASCAR. So, Roy, thank you so much for joining us this week on Let's Go Racing.
My pleasure, guys. Thanks for having me.
Well, Roy, one thing we love doing on the show before we get started, you got to take us back to the beginning. Tell us where the fandom started with auto racing and NASCAR, how you got involved, and just the grassroots of that, where it all started for you.
I never actually, being in Connecticut, there were no tracks. Stafford Motor Speedway was the main track in Connecticut as I was growing up as a kid. But of course, open wheel modified racing, I just never was a part of that. but I hung around with a bunch of guys who were streetcar guys who were NASCAR fans. And most of them, of course, were at the time Dale Earnhardt fans. But there was this one guy in the Levi Garrett Chevrolet, Rick Hendrick Chevrolet, number 5. And I said, this guy, there's something about this guy. I like this guy. And he won the 87 Daytona 500, or 86 Daytona 500. He could have won the 87, but he ran out of gas there with a lap or two to go. But yeah, I became a Geoff Bodine fan, and I went to Dover. I went to Pocono, Watkins Glen to watch him run, and try to figure out, there's no way I can get near this guy. I mean, just how do I meet this dude? So I made a VHS video of myself, introduced him to myself and my wife and my family, and I mailed it to him. And about a month later, I come home from work and my wife says, "Roy, you're never going to guess who just called the house." And I'm like, "Who?" She said, "Geoff." And I was like, "Geoff who?" She goes, "Roy, Geoff Bodine called. He wants you to call him back." And of course I did. And from there, it kind of just, it grew. He invited us to come down to the house, and Don and I went down to Martinsville. He took us to the race. He was married to Kathy at the time, and I got to stay at his house and meet his young son, Barry, and we just snowballed from there. We became very good friends, and I went to Daytona and stayed at his condo in Daytona, and just inside, it was an absolute unbelievable happening. Like no fan gets to see what I saw. And I made a lot of friends during that time. And unfortunately, that the tragic loss of Alan Quickly in '92, and the truth of that, I mean, '93 actually, the truth there is that after that happened, I spoke to Geoff, and I didn't want to sound, I don't even know the word morbid or anything, but I said, "Geoff, this might be a great opportunity." I was thinking to myself that if you could purchase that team, you would be the president and also the driver. And I'm not saying that I made him do that, but I did say that to him, and it did happen. And ironically, I ended up at the Alan Kulwicki race shop with Geoff the day that he purchased the team. It was an amazing experience. And I had a feeling that when I drove back home to Connecticut after that visit, that I was going to get a call, because I mentioned to him a few times that I would come down there and sweep the floor and empty the garbage pails. I didn't care. I didn't have any NASCAR experience, obviously, but Geoff and I had made a friendship, and I was a guy he could trust. And he did call me, and my wife and I did move to Greensboro, North Carolina. And I went to work for Geoff in 1993, the end of the season, through the entire season in '94. And it was the most awesome experience that any guy could ever have, want or have. It was amazing.
And David, just hearing that story too, like taking the time to send something through the mail and Geoff getting back to him, it reminds me of when Corey LaJoie wrote that letter to Rick Hendrick and saying, "Hey, if there's ever an opportunity, I'd love to do that." And I think a lot of times people overlook things, but when things are handwritten or there's that personal touch to it, David, I feel like it goes the extra mile, like in Roy's case here.
No, it's cool hearing Roy's story. Man, it's just, it's that's what our sport's all about. Hearing great stories like that and having somebody write a letter to a race car driver and having Geoff respond, and the experience that Roy got to experience going to the 1985, going to the Daytona 500 and doing all that stuff with Geoff. I don't know if he was at the 86 Daytona 500, but just hearing how that relationship developed, it's great. It just, a lot of times fans or people that just love racing in general, you reach out to a driver, a crew chief, or somebody in the sport. It's really refreshing, and it also, what we already know, Geoff Bodine is a class act. Not only is he one of the best ever race car drivers out there, but to hear how that relationship developed, hear how Roy sent that the VCR tape, and having Geoff respond to it is awesome. You just don't hear many stories like that, and it says a lot about both guys. And man, what a great story, and it's just it's unbelievable, really.
Well, and Roy too, when you hear a story like that and Geoff takes you up on it. So, okay, you get to work with Geoff. How quick was that learning curve? Because he takes you up on it. You're moving your family down to North Carolina, halfway across the country. Tell us about that. I'm sure that learning curve was pretty steep.
Well, I got to be honest, guys. I mean, when you go into a NASCAR shop back in 1994, and things were a lot different in 1994 than they are today. I was the boss's pet. And man, a lot of guys let me know that when I got there. I made a mistake of changing a radio station from a country station to a rock and roll station, and boy, I never made that mistake again. Yeah, those guys. It was a Winston Cup championship team. Those guys were the best at that time, and for me to come in there they all knew I had no experience, and I mean, I just wanted to show everybody that I was going to be an asset. I was not going to be a liability, and I didn't come here for fame or fortune or anything. I came here because I truly I love that guy, and I wanted to be there. I gave up my life to be there, and I was going to help in any way I could. And it took a while because, like I said, there was a few guys there that told me that I didn't belong, and it was
Roy, you gained their respect. You proved yourself.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I mean, again, we had it was just a transition that we went through that year that Geoff had chosen to run Hoosier tires. Making that decision, there was also a political side to it, that a lot of drivers were upset that Geoff did that. And I mean, when we went to the super speedways like Talladega and Daytona, them fellas didn't want to draft with him. They didn't want to push him. They would move away from him out on the track, and that's a fact. And it just made everything an uphill kind of progression. But man, when he won the All-Star race, once that happened, things really clicked. And I got to say that Bob Newton, he put a lot of faith and trust into Geoff, and we did a lot of tire testing for Bob. I did a lot of traveling, man. I was never home that season. We went to Indianapolis, I would say at least 3 times before the actual race to test out there. And man, we had such a great car because you guys, I know I don't have to tell you, Pocono rivals the Indianapolis racetrack, and Geoff lapped the entire field in Pocono except for Ward Burton. He didn't get by Ward, but he was on Ward's tail when they crossed the finish line, and Ward was on Hoosier tires also. So that gives you an idea of the setup that he had at Pocono. And we took that same race car and we went to Indianapolis, and Geoff qualified 3rd. But if you watch that race, you will see that Geoff did not pit on the first caution flag. Everyone pitted except for Geoff. And Geoff was on, I would say, at least 20 lap tires. And when the rest of the field came out, Jeff Gordon did pass him. I believe another car passed him, so he fell back to 3rd or 4th. And within 10 laps, he passed everyone again on on tires that had 20 or 30 laps more than everybody else. And we knew right then and there it was our race to win. But again, that was unfortunate that he and Brett got together there in turn 4. And
Man, Roy, just listen to you speak, man. It's like you're bringing history back current, because I was there that day. I was there at the 94 Brickyard 400. I remember it was really big news in the sport to have, Geoff Bodine, Daytona 500 winner, Cup champion, switch over to Hoosiers, but, now that I've been a NASCAR driver for 25 years and understand the business side of it, man, you can't blame him. I know it was a political thing back then, but man, from a business standpoint, and then just hearing you from inside, I never knew, if, all of us that are involved or watch NASCAR racing or watch racing on television, everybody knows if you got 20 lap tires, 25 lap, 30 tires, and everybody makes a pit stop, they put on fresh tires, you're a sitting duck. You're going back quick, and it's amazing how good the Hoosier tires were to be able to have everybody make a pit stop, lap 20, whatever it was at Indianapolis, and have Geoff Bodine fall back to third or fourth, and then later in that run pass everybody and go back to the lead is a testament of why Geoff Bodine chose the Hoosiers. And people don't understand, but one of the biggest expenses in auto racing are tires. And I'm sure Geoff, as his own team owner at the time, was looking at the financial side of it too,
Absolutely.
But man, Geoff did what Geoff thought was always best for his racing team and him, even though it might not have been the I don't know how you say that. He stepped out there and Geoff knew what was right and wrong and knew what was good for his team. But man, I've always been a fan of Geoff Bodine, but it's cool to go back in time and hear somebody that was working, connected, involved in it. Because I remember it like it was yesterday. That was a big deal in NASCAR world to have Geoff Bodine switch over to Hoosier tires.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Big deal. And Roy, we've had Geoff on the show before, and he's been very open about the 94 season. And you want to talk about a season that's like the missing ring, the missing championship, or the ultimate feast and famine season. When you guys were on fire, leading the most laps, winning the pole, just putting a blister on the rest of the competition. But when the engines were blowing, they were blowing. 8 engine failures in 31 races, 1 out of every 4 races, essentially. So Geoff has shared those highs and lows of that season, winning 3 times, winning the All-Star race, and of course the lows of his professional and personal career. Now, working on the team, what was it like from that insider point, seeing all these highs, seeing all these lows, climbing all those mountains and falling through those valleys?
It was an emotional roller coaster. It really was. It was such a tight-knit team. Again, we were talking about the pit crew who I spent the most time with. These fellows had won the Winston Cup championship. They knew what it took to win. The guy that was there before Bodine was absolutely, that was an amazing story in itself. I mean, that guy was something. But with Geoff, like you say, when he was good, he was great. Lapped the field at North Wilkesboro. He won the pole in Atlanta. I set track record at Atlanta that I think still stood till just a few years ago. I mean, he was absolutely, he was hard to beat. It was great. Should have won Bristol, the night race at Bristol, and had an engine failure. Mellow Yellow 500 at Charlotte. He led the most laps until we had an engine failure. The race in Sonoma was unbelievable. I mean, unbelievable. He was marvelous on the road course there. And we finished second there. to Ernie Irvin, he was awesome. Jeff cruised to an easy win in Michigan. That was unbelievable. As I said, in Pocono, he lapped everyone except for Ward Burton. It was when he was good, he was great. He was unbeatable. But again, the engine failures hurt us, and it was a tough season
So
for
Roy,
everybody.
looking back on that '94 season and Jeff owning his own teams, did y'all own your own engines, or were you sourcing that out? Who was doing y'all's engines that year?
No, our engine builder was Danny Glad, and I
Okay.
became very good friends with Danny. In fact, if it weren't for Danny stepping down from the pit crew, because Danny was a tire carrier on the pit crew before I got there, and Danny said, "You know what? I got a lot on the line here. I can't get hurt. I can't get injured. Jumping over the walls is a dangerous thing. I'm going to step back. And Roy, I see you out here at pit stop practice. I think you should be the guy." And Bodine agreed. So that's how I got on. I was a tire carrier on the pit crew. And I worked with Shane Parslow, who obviously went on to have an amazing career with Hendrick Motorsports. But it was, thinking back, man, and like being on the show right now, I really haven't thought about it, but here we are in 2023, and that was 1994, and just a 30-year-old guy that had zero NASCAR experience. And I had so many acquaintances back home that were involved in stock car racing at Stafford that were like, how in the hell is that guy going over the wall at Daytona and Indianapolis? How did this happen? It just is, it's unbelievable, but it did happen. And it was such a magical thing.
Well, and what it sounds like, Roy, from what you've said, and the conversations I've had with Jeff in the past too, that this is a guy that he's a trendsetter. He does things his way or the highway. No one tells Geoff Bodine what to do, and that he does what's best for him and the people around him, his family, and all that. I mean, he is a unique cat. I hate to say it this way. I hope people don't take this the wrong way. He's an alpha. He's an alpha male, and that's what I get out of him. Was that kind of what you took away, his personality and the way he operated?
Well, I learned about that. I mean, I was just a fan. I was a fan, but there was a few times when I went over the wall and he asked me to do something and I didn't get it done. And yeah, we heard about that. He was the alpha. But in a good way. I mean, he was never a bossy guy, never, a finger in the face kind of guy. He knew what he needed to win. That was a great thing about him. He knew how to set up the car. He knew what he liked, and he demanded that. And God bless Paul Andrews was able to give him that on several occasions. And it was such an amazing season, man. Just really, really great. Awesome.
So Roy, when's your book coming out?
My book, no, I haven't been writing much, but Dominic has got one coming out, so I'm waiting for that one.
Dom, we got to make sure Roy's in the book, dude.
Oh, he is. In fact,
okay, that's amazing.
Roy, we spoke like at least on 3 or 4 occasions because there were just so many good stories, and I got your perspective. Like, well, hey, how about this or how about that? So Roy is actually quoted in the book. There's drivers quoted. There's broadcasters. We wanted to have at least one team member. And we got 2 team members. Paul Andrews and Roy Oliver are going to be in the book with multiple quotes, I should add, too. So
awesome.
Roy's got some good stuff in there. And to Roy, I think on that whole season, so just to give even more perspective, 31 races, you guys were testing. So there were Saturday and Sunday races sprinkled across 94 and Wednesday test sessions. And one test session in particular that really stands out is one at Bristol Motor Speedway. I believe you guys were doing a midweek test there. And I don't know which 2 tracks were in between that or sandwiched in between this test session, But you had a pretty cool opportunity. We know Tyler a few weeks ago got to do the opportunity with David's team, Texas High Performance Racing School. And Roy, you had an even similar experience. Tell us about that.
Well, I've always been a comedian. I'm a funny guy, and I got a big mouth. We were flying over to Bristol in a Cessna prop plane with Bob Newton and a few of these Hoosier guys, these high up guys, and Paul Andrews, Geoff Bodine, and myself in the plane. And I don't know, maybe I had one too many coffees that morning, but I looked over at Bodine and I said to him, Bodine, if I ever get behind the wheel at number 7, you may be looking for a new job. And boy, those Hoosier guys really liked the way I said that. They were laughing, and it was a joke. But we landed the plane. We got to Bristol, and I remember it was at least 95 degrees. That Bristol heat was excruciating. And Geoff was just running lap after lap after lap. We were the only team there. And it was the end of the session. I was there with Peter Jellin and my buddy Danny Cameron. And we were getting ready to put the tires on the car to push it back into the truck, load it up. And Geoff is talking to the Hoosier guys. They're taking temperatures on the tires. And Bodine looks over at me and goes, "What are you doing?" And I'm getting the car. I'm going to put the car in the truck. He said, "Nah, hold on a second. What about that talk about me losing my job?" I said, "What are you talking about?" I'm not lying to you guys. He took his helmet and he threw it, and I caught his helmet. And he goes, "Let's see what you got." And Bob Newton was clapping, like he was like, "Oh boy, here we go." And now that's when it set in, fellas. That's when it really set in that I'm looking up at the grandstands, and I'm looking at this bank track, and I'm saying to myself, Jesus, I'm going to get in the number 7 XI Batteries Thunderbird. This is a primary race car, and I'm about to drive this thing. And I was getting in the car, and I looked at him because I am a funny guy. And I said, "Bodine, you're making a career decision here." And he pushed me in, and I got inside the car. I didn't even know how to start the goddamn thing. But Bodine buckles me in, he strapped me in, and I put the helmet on, and he looks at me, and he puts the net up, and he said, "Roy, don't wreck this race car." Okay. And started the car, and I took off down pit road. And guys, I wish that I could have had a video or a photo or something to show you, but it was absolutely amazing. I mean, I drove up onto the track, and I looked down, and the bottom of the racetrack was flat, and I'm sideways in this car. That I also learned that if you let go of the steering wheel, the goddamn thing's going to turn left. You got to hold the thing straight. So I'm driving, and I'm shifting gears, and I'm in 4th gear, and I'm probably going 50 miles an hour, just rolling around, just looking at the groove in the track, and just not in disbelief what's going on right now. And then I get this call over the radio. "Well, what do you got?" "Okay, you asked for it." And I proceeded to run probably 5 laps as hard as I could physically drive this car. I'd never driven anything like this before. I mean, my dad owned a 1977 Trans Am because we loved the movie Smokey and the Bandit, and we went out and bought one of those things. So I mean, like I had visions of, maybe I was Burt Reynolds a couple of times in my life, but nothing like this. You know what I mean? This was just the ultimate. And after my 5 lap run, I came down pit road, and I dropped the net, and I had my arm out the window, and I did it, man. I'm the man. And I pulled up, and everybody was clapping, and they were laughing at the same time. And I got out of the car, and I stood up on the door, and I had my arms up like I just won the Bristol 500. And I jumped down off the door, and I take the helmet off, and Bodine comes over and gives me a hug. And he says, Roy, we got a new nickname for you. And I said, what's that? He goes, we're going to call you the Turtle. It's a turtle. Jesus. I said, I ran the rubber off of those tires. He goes, well, you certainly you smoked the brakes off that car. Look at the brakes were overheating, but it was an amazing experience. So I'll never forget that as long as I live. And
what a cool story, man. Yeah. That's unheard of.
It is unheard of.
Yeah,
it is. You're thinking about it now, like, man,
you never even driven a race car before. Get in there and drive my race car. Wow.
Can you believe it? And I said, like, thinking later on, Geoff, are you crazy letting me drive that race car? He said, I knew you could handle it. I don't know.
That's awesome.
I could drive it, but I don't know about handling it. That was something else. So
amazing story, man. Unbelievable.
So let me ask you, let's get one more question in, and then we'll move on to our news and notes here. Roy, how did things finish out for you, and what have you been doing since?
Well, things finished out. Unfortunately, life changes, guys. Everybody knows that you go through changes, and Geoff had he and his wife had parted ways at the end of that season. And Geoff was he was going through changes himself. He didn't know like what was going to happen after that season. He said that to me, that he wasn't sure, how he felt about racing. And I knew after that season and putting in the hours and days and weeks and months of racing that we did, I knew, I lived with my wife, obviously, but I never seen her. She'd only come to the closest races to Charlotte, and I missed my family. I was a huge snowmobile guy. I still am a huge snowmobile guy. It was a huge part of my life, snowmobile drag racing, and I loved my family, and I missed my friends. I loved my friends. And I didn't know what was going to happen, with Geoff or the team. And I said to him, Geoff, I think it'd be best if after the season is over, I'm going to go back home and make a life for myself back home. I got to figure some stuff out. And he had to figure some stuff out. And that's exactly how it happened. And obviously, I've always kept in touch with Geoff. I've visited with him, and he's visited with me. And I've been meaning to get back to see him. Life just, the clock does not stop ticking, man. It just keeps on ticking, and you end up where you end up. But I currently work at Land & Sea Power Sports in Waterbury, Connecticut. One of my best friends, longtime friends, is the owner of it, and I'm a salesman over there. And again, it's snowmobiles, ATVs, watercraft, motorcycles. That's something that I've been a part of my entire life. So I have a really great job, and I love being where I'm at right now. But again, with Geoff, I wish we lived closer and we had a closer relationship. Like I could visit with him more often than I have, because he's been like a dad to me, man. Guys just don't get the opportunity that I got, especially in a guy in his position. It was one of the most amazing things, and I'm so grateful that I was able to live through that. It was amazing.
That's incredible.
I think it's an honor you got to hear you. It's cool and thank you for sharing your story with us. It's you got to live a year as a NASCAR crew member, personal friends with Geoff Bodine, and just all the cool things you got to do, and to see the business side of it, inside where most people don't go, the political, financial, the emotional, I mean, and seeing Roy, what it takes for a team to be a championship caliber team, and and just listening to you speak. NASCAR racing is awesome. It's on television every weekend. It's great, but it's not for everybody because these crew members, crew chiefs, all the men and women. I mean, you're without your family for 10 months, and the schedule. And you said it best. It's not for everybody, and but what's cool about it is just the whole story. But what's cool about it, you got to live an ultimate dream, an ultimate experience for a year, and you knew towards the end when it was going to be done that was not what your career was going to look like. You know what I mean? And pretty awesome story, man. It's incredible, and I've always been a big Geoff Bodine fan, and Dominic and Tyler are great friends with Geoff, but the whole family are hell of race car driver, hell of a family. All his brothers, they're all really great, awesome race car drivers. And man, and Geoff has always been a class act. The sport is really where the sport is at because of lots of things that Geoff Bodine invented and did for the sport, and that he didn't get the recognition for. But anyway, man, pretty cool story, Roy, and it's cool to have you on here.
Thank you guys, man. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah. One more thing, David, I'll add, kind of to your point. We've been doing this show for over 2 years now, and we have never had a crewman on this show before. And David, to finally have a crewman on of some sorts, I think Roy was a great fit because it's such a unique story from other crewmen out there. No one's got a story like Roy here.
No, I mean, it's so unique and so personalized, and just it's amazing what Roy got to experience, live through, work in, see a lot of the history that 1994 season, with talking about Bob Newton with Hoosier Tires, the tire war, NASCAR. It was a very political thing, and then the inaugural race at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway for NASCAR to go to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and run a NASCAR race, inaugural race. I mean, there were so many things that happened in that year, and for Roy to be part of all that is amazing. It's an amazing story.
Absolutely. News and notes time for the latest headlines going on in the world of motorsports and in NASCAR. Dominic takes us away. And Dom, we start with some very sad and heartbreaking news out of Muskogee, Oklahoma.
Not too far away from your hometown there, Tyler, in East Oklahoma, rather. And we do begin with some sad news with the reporting of Jimmie Johnson's in-laws, his parents-in-laws, that had passed away at the hands of a tragic event. Muskogee Police Department was first to report on Tuesday, June 27th, that three people were called into a release where a resident from a woman saying there was a disturbance and a gun, ultimately finding out that 3 lives were lost. Terry Janaway is suspected, according to police, shooting and killing her husband, Jack Janaway, and their 11-year-old grandson, Dalton Janaway. And this is Jimmie Johnson's wife's parents and their nephew. And to further add on to that, Legacy Motor Club, Jimmie Johnson's NASCAR Cup Series team that he co-owns, released a statement that they were going to withdraw the number 84 entry. Johnson was slated to run this weekend at the inaugural NASCAR Chicago Street Course race, and that no further comment will be said at this time. But certainly, Tyler, our thoughts, our prayers, our hearts break for Jimmie Johnson, his wife, and their family, and to all affected by this.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this, David, that I feel for Jimmie and Chandra. They're wonderful people, and you're not going to hear a bad thing about Jimmie Johnson, the person, from anybody. And the situation not only is it sad, it's just bizarre. We obviously we weren't there. We don't know exactly what happened and everything. We're still waiting on more details to confirm. But Certainly just thinking of the Johnsons at this just terrible time right now.
Yeah, you can't, it's hard to even comprehend it, and Jimmie is such a class act, and champion, just a great guy. I mean, it's just, you don't even really know how to respond. And like Dominic says, man, I just, you feel for the family, you pray for them, your thoughts and prayers are with them, and I mean, it's so unreal to hear that when you hear that and see that kind of stuff that happens in our country. And you just think about mental health. Sometimes you don't know what's going on in people's lives, or just, man, it's just, I don't know, man. I just we're all blessed. Life's precious. It can be taken from us in a second. I just hate to hear this kind of news for anybody, and especially for Jimmie Johnson, such a wonderful person, and his family. So sad news, man.
Yeah. Roy, what was your reaction when you heard this news?
Disbelief. Just disbelief. Again, the term mental illness, or I've never dealt with it personally, but you can't comprehend what just happened, and God, I just feel so bad for the people that are here and have to deal with the consequence of this actions. It's a sad thing.
Dominic, as far as the on-track stuff goes, that 84 entry, as you mentioned, withdrew from this race. They won't be involved here. That's a part-time team. Jimmie's been picking and choosing the races he wants to do. He doesn't have to be there. I know that the entry list, we'll talk about that here in a second, is pretty impressive, but this is the right call. He needs to be with his family at this time. This was an easy decision for that team to stay away from the track this weekend.
Certainly, NASCAR Nation, the members of NASCAR, the team members, the drivers, everybody preaches how this is a family-oriented sport. And right now, his personal family really needs him. And like you said, the right call. There's going to be racing. There's going to be more opportunities to hit the track later. He's making the right call.
Yeah, certainly so. Dominic, what else going on?
Well, shifting gears to a much lighter note, we've been following the NASCAR media TV rights deal and landscape, and how we're going to possibly maybe see some changes in 2025 with the new TV deal, but not so fast. According to the Sports Business Journal and Adam Stern reporting, with only July 4th a week away, we thought we might see a clearer answer as to what this new TV rights deal is, but that timeline, Tyler, is being pushed back a couple of months to late summer, early fall. So about September, October, we may have more of an idea of what's going on with it. But it seems like NASCAR is moving away too from selling the full season of the Xfinity series to an exclusive streaming partner, and that talks with Amazon seem to be stalling at this time to take over 6 races, or more or less about 6 races on the Cup Series side, much like how we saw the TNT deal from 2007 to 2014.
I gotta tell you, I'm not surprised. Somebody that follows the media landscape, the Pac-12 conference in college football, they thought they were going to get a deal done with Amazon, and that's been delayed. And they were supposed to have an announcement in December. It's June now. Pac-12 hasn't announced a TV deal at this point in time, and they got other factors involved. ESPN is making cuts. The NFL Network is making cuts. Fox, it's economy is not great right now. You don't have to be an expert to know that. And the NBA has also got their TV deal up as well, and NBC's apparently interested in that. Just a lot of moving parts and pieces. I will say, though, as somebody that's been watching this from the media side, that the longer this drags out, that's not good news, because that means that's more opportunity for people to say no and drive down the price and affect these teams. So, David, I don't know what ultimately this looks like. I know you and I talked about a while back. We were having a conversation. We were out several weeks ago for my birthday, how for the Xfinity series, it would be, I would think, it could be costly for Xfinity teams if those races aren't available on network television, if they went exclusively to a streamer, especially when you have a lot of older NASCAR fans out there.
Yeah, we talked about that, Tyler, and that space right there. I don't know a whole lot about it, but I do know that our sport, has risen to be what it is today, and what it has been is because of the TV, the national audience, the TV networks, NBC, Fox, ESPN. You just hope that. I think with our core fans, I don't know what the demographic age wise, but if you start doing streaming races, we're going to lose some of our core fans. You know what I mean? So I hope that NASCAR and whatever network that they work out all the details soon rather than later, and keep our sport at the forefront on a major network. I just think that's important for everybody involved, for the team owners, the drivers, everybody. NASCAR, again, that's a space I'm not that familiar with, Tyler. Just hearing you speak about it because you're working for the NFL Network and all the things you do. You understand that space, but I just hope it works out good for the industry and the team owners and everybody involved.
I mean, you've seen this firsthand, looking at just, the business side. You walked right into, as we mentioned earlier in the show. I got to tell you, just from my vantage point, Roy, of what you saw firsthand, at the end of the day, NASCAR is still a business. This thing is still cutthroat, as much as we talk about family and some other stuff here. I mean, it's still a business at the end of the day, right?
Oh yeah. I gotta say, guys, again, grateful that I was able to do that when I did it. The 1994 season, the talent that was involved there, the guys that were involved there, then the drivers, the teams, it was just a monumental thing. I mean, to see Dale Earnhardt, up close, to see Darrell Waltrip, Rusty Wallace, and Mark Martin, Ernie Irvan. I mean, Bill Elliott, Richard Petty, amazing.
Sterling Marlin, they don't stop.
It's just unbelievable. The competition, it's just, I don't feel that today, and I don't mean to take anything away from NASCAR or anything. It's just, I mean, handsome Harry Gant. It was amazing. It was great, and these guys were bigger than life, man. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, it was a unique time for sure. Dominic, let's look ahead to this weekend's race, the first ever street race in Chicago. David and I went back and forth for a long time about if NASCAR should have a street race or not. At the end of the day, we'll find out who's right and see how this goes. You know how I feel. You know how David feels. Set the scene for us.
This is the first time NASCAR is hitting the streets of any city in its 75-year history with the NASCAR Street Course event this weekend in Chicago, the Grant Park 220. Opening odds. We talk about the odds every week. I feel like odd makers probably have it really hard to pick this week because there's so many variables, but
they haven't even tested the track.
They haven't even tested the track, but I guess if you're going off past road course trends, opening at 7-1, there are 4 drivers that odd makers per NASCAR.com are saying 7-1. That's Tyler Reddick, Martin Truex Jr., Kyle Larson, and Chase Elliott, all road course aces, all that have won at road courses in the past. But certainly so many variables, so many question marks. And highlighting that entry list too, Tyler, like you were alluding to earlier, you have Formula One champion Jenson Button racing the number 15 for Rick Ware Racing. You have our buddy, friend of the show, Andy Lally, driving another entry for Rick Ware Racing. And then the Project 91, the track house operation, Shane, I'm probably butchering his name, so apologize in advance, Shane Van Gisbergen, who is the 3-time supercar champion, behind the wheel of that 91 car. Star-studded lineup this weekend.
Yeah, and then you got Justin Marks in the Xfinity race as well.
Yeah.
I really wish Jordan Taylor would have gotten an opportunity this week. I think that would have been a lot of fun if Jordan Taylor was on track. But David, the time has come. I know you have dreaded the idea of stock cars on a street course, but you can't deny the excitement and what this is doing for the sport here. I don't know how the on-track action is going to go, but a lot of hype for this, and got a music festival along with it. Great opportunity to introduce new fans to the sport, taking it to them in the streets here.
Oh man, no doubt about it. I love, NASCAR has been amazing. The changes and I don't know if it's Ben Kennedy, but Jill in France. But man, you got to take your hat off to them, because man, they are stepping out there and they're trying. They're trying things, and it's amazing. I will say there's a lot of hype. And a lot of companies, a lot of newer eyes to our sport, a lot of new companies coming in, sponsoring a lot of the different teams. Man, I'm excited about all that, and I hope that that the races are incredible, and it's exciting, man. I can't wait to watch it. I thought about driving in it, but I'm not. But I will say that I'll stick by what I say, man. I don't know. Our NASCAR race cars are not meant for road course street races. You know what I mean? But I think NASCAR's, I take my hat off to them, because man, they're trying. They're changing up the schedule. They're doing some crazy moves to grow the sport, bring in new fans, new businesses. I mean, and I love it all. I hope it's not a gimmick, and I hope it's incredible. I hope we're back on here next week talking about, man, that was unbelievable. That was a hell of a race. I hope that's what we're doing. But man, I can assure you, and you guys know, but there's a lot of people that don't even follow our sport that are paying attention to it, because it's a big deal.
Yeah, it is a big deal. Grant Park is going to be popping. Music festival going along. Big names too. Miranda Lambert. I bet David would love to meet Miranda Lambert. You got the Black Crows are going to be out there. The Chain Smokers. I mean, it's going to be a big deal. I'm certainly excited about it. David, a man of principle, is sticking to his guns. Not racing there this weekend, but hopefully he's proven wrong, and we see an exciting race this weekend. Roy, what's your thoughts? NASCAR going street racing? Who would have thought this was possible a couple of years ago?
I love it. I think it's great. Did Formula One ever have a street style race like that?
Oh yeah. They've done it in the U.S. too. Miami.
It's got that kind of appeal.
IndyCar's done it for a long time. They race in Nashville, Long Beach. About everybody but NASCAR has.
Well, there you have it. They're stepping up to the plate. This is going to be exciting, especially for Chicago. I mean, I got a very good friend of mine that's going to be there, and I hope that he gets all his money worth and then some. I'm excited for him.
Dominic, I can't wait. I'm so glad that I get to be there and see this thing firsthand. And if this works, I know there's questions about the future, but we talked with Dustin Long of NBC Sports last week, and whether it's Philadelphia potentially, where Xfinity's headquartered, or some of the other places, this is an experiment that, if it works, could pay off big time for NASCAR here if everything goes well.
Big time. I know we've talked in the past few off air. We've gone back and forth. How do you define this as a successful race weekend, financial wise, on track product wise? But even we know that the incoming mayor was not a big fan of this to begin with. But however, he's warming up to the idea of the fact that there has been an uptick in tourism and people getting hotel rooms and people coming.
He saw the boost to the economy, and all of a sudden everything's okay.
Exactly. So you can only imagine that's going to be amplified and exponentially grown this weekend.
Yeah, for sure. We'll see what happens. let's make some picks here real quick. Then we'll move on. Dominic, you go ahead and start us off. We don't know what this trial, who the favorites are going to be based on prior history. I feel like you take the core road racers and probably just pull one out of a hat, right?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, barring something crazy, I mean, like Dustin Longton, you could have the top 7 crash out and the 8th car wins on the last lap on a crazy restart. But I think logic will sit in. We'll see some surprises. We'll see some guys run up front that maybe we weren't expecting. Michael McDowell might be a contender. But I think Tyler Reddick gets it done at the Chicago streets.
This guy needs a win to get in the playoff. You want to talk about making a statement. How about your most popular driver wins the street race? Chase Elliott gets it done in Chicago. David, who do you like?
Well, how about my buddy that really had an awesome car this past weekend at Nashville? I think Kevin Harvick gets it done in Chicago.
When in doubt, Kevin Harvick. Roy, who you picking this week at Chicago?
I think Geoff Bodine's going to get it done in Chicago.
Yeah, I think so too.
right here, Roy. Yes, Geoff Bodine.
Hey, Roy, he could get in a car today and get it done. There's no doubt.
I'm telling you, he was something on the road course, man. He was really good.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, time for our Ask David segment. We ask you to submit questions to us on Facebook, Twitter, at Star Podcast, and by email. davidstarpodcast@gmail.com is where you can find us. Question from Allie. Allie writes, David, I heard Roy got to drive a race car. How do you think Roy would do at your racing school?
Man, I think Roy would do great. You know, with a little bit of training, he would absolutely love it. The difference between driving Geoff Bodine's car in 1994 at Bristol Motor Speedway and coming to the Texas Motor Speedway driving one of my Team Texas race cars, he'd have to stay out there and almost be in a race because there'd be 9 other cars out there with him. And I know Roy likes to drive fast, so I think once he saw a car in front of him, he'd think he was Geoff Bodine and want to go past it. So I think Roy would really do good coming to our racing school. I think he would love it.
As David would say, Roy, you'd be hauling ass.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Roy, is that something you want to do? You want to hop in a stock car again?
Absolutely. I mean, I always thought I could be the total package. You know, I mean, I got the charm, I got the looks. I need the skills, so Dave can show me how to get it done.
This one's from Anthony. It's for Roy and David. We'll start off with Roy this time. What advice would you give someone who wants to be working in NASCAR someday?
Let's see. My advice is this: NASCAR is a proving ground. Just like anything else in life that you would choose that you're going to make a profession, you have to go in it with a positive mindset that you're going to be an asset. You are going to be good for wherever you go, whoever you work for. You have to be loyal, and you have to put your nose to the grindstone and make sacrifices that sometimes are not in your benefit, but you know, wholeheartedly, that's what it takes to be successful, and not just in NASCAR, in any form of business or life in general. But yeah, an asset, man. We need more assets in the world today.
David, what about you? What would your advice be for somebody that wants to work in NASCAR?
Man, go for it. You know, have a good attitude. Come in with be open-minded. Be easy for change. You know, if you're allergic to manual labor, it's probably not a place for you. But man, you know, there's racing teams out there that would love to have somebody new that wants to be there, that wants to learn, who wants to make a career out of it, and just having a positive attitude. You know, be open-minded, coming to work, learn all you can learn, be loyal, be committed, And man, I just, there's lots of great careers in our industry of NASCAR racing, but be a leader, you know what I mean? Whether you're a crew member, PR person, there's so many different skill sets that are in our sport. I love it when I meet men and women and young people and older people that make a living in NASCAR. You talk to them for 5 minutes, you fall in love with them because they got great attitude. You hear their story. They were committed. There was not, there was no option B that was going to make it work. They, got to have a lot of passion, a lot of desire. And I think if you have all that, all that ingredients, the outcome's going to be great.
Dominic, you and I, we've worked in the sport for several years now. We've played a small role, but I can tell you, I think the biggest thing when we talk advice and whatnot, we could tell you what not to do in the sport based on what we've seen from our own mistakes and from people that haven't made it.
I've always said if people can learn from my mistakes and use those as learning lessons to not repeat what I've done, hey, I'm all for it. But I think just kind of what Roy and David are saying and echoing, don't be afraid to take some chances, whether that be on yourself or on opportunity that comes up. Tyler, life's too short, as we've come to realize. Why not do the things you enjoy? You might have to grind it out. You might have to work hard, and you might have to catch a lucky break. But if you're putting the work in and you're persistent, somebody's going to take notice.
Yeah, well, and I think, too, David, what I would also add, and this doesn't even just apply to working in racing, working in NASCAR, but really all walks of life. You can be rich as can be and still not be happy. I mean, you gotta find your own happiness. You got to do what you want to do, what makes you happy. And money doesn't necessarily mean happiness. You got to do what's best for you and best for your family and find that happy medium.
Man, that's so true. You guys know me. I work all the time. I'm either racing in an Xfinity race somewhere, or I'm at my shop at Texas Motor Speedway running my racing school. I'm just 24/7. People say, man, you work all the time. If you love what you do, if you're passionate about what you do, you'll never work a day in your life, even though you work your tail off. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, you got to find your happiness, and if you're working, you guys, all of us, we have friends that say, I hate going to work. I hate getting up going to work. Man, I always feel for people when I hear those types of comments, you know what I mean? Because I would tell you that you need to find something that makes you happy, something you're passionate about, and go try to make a living doing that. And if you can do that, life's good. You know what I mean? Can you imagine, guys, if we got to get up tomorrow morning and we dread doing what we got to go do to make a living, to take care of our families, that's, that's quality of life. You lose a little bit of quality of life there. You know what I mean? So, Tyler, like you said, it doesn't matter if it's NASCAR, that's just in life in general, so, I hope, we hope that everybody, when they get up tomorrow morning, they're excited to go make a living and go to work, wherever that may be.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We're just about done, about to wrap up here. Before we do, let's kind of go around the room. Roy, we appreciate you joining us, man. What's going on in your world? What's kind of your next few days look like, man?
Getting charged up for a big 4th of July celebration this weekend. Few parties, different places, a lot of family, a lot of friends, and I'm excited to see how the Chicago race pans out, man. See who comes out on top. Should be good.
No doubt about it. Dominic, you're not going to be joining us in Chicago, unfortunately, but what's going on with you over the 4th of July weekend?
Yeah, I'll be spending some time with the family and spending it here in Grants, New Mexico, my wife and son. It's going to be awesome. I think seeing his reaction, Christopher's, to fireworks and how all that goes. But I'm looking forward to being back in my first race in quite some time at Atlanta in a couple of weeks. I'm sorry I won't join you guys in Chicago. I do look forward to getting out there, someday soon. But man, we'll miss you in Atlanta, Tyler.
Yeah, I mean, Dominic misses out on the two most exciting races of the year: Nashville and Chicago. Go to Atlanta. I don't get that. I don't understand it at all. But nonetheless, David,
he ain't had much sleep lately, Tyler.
yeah, David, you're off this week, but I'm sure you're going to be busy with something.
Man, no doubt about it. Tomorrow, I got 3 meetings tomorrow, starting at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning at my shop. Got a big sponsor meeting tomorrow, and some other racing school meetings this weekend. I'm trying to, since I'm not racing, I'm trying to take my 10-year-old to go race his little sprint car somewhere. So we're working on that to see where he might be racing. If they're not racing locally, we probably go find us a track to go race at. So hopefully we're going to do that. But man, I hope to spend one day at the lake, just, enjoying my kids and my wife, and just try to have a little R&R, which we don't get much of that, you know what I mean? So, and then I'm excited to see what's going on in Chicago, to watch this freaking road race. I mean, it's just history being made in our sport. It's kind of cool. I kind of, now we're talking about it, I've been thinking about it. Hell, I should be there in a race car trying to figure that out. I think it'd be awesome to freaking race around a street course. You know what I mean? It'd be, I'm just thinking to myself, what happens is third and fourth, somebody passes somebody and man, they spin out or wreck. Man, can you imagine all the cars going to pile up into them? I just, so many questions, but I just hope that it pans out really well for this street race. And so that's it. What about you, Tyler? What are you doing? We already know what you're doing. You're going to Chicago, right?
Yeah. Summer of Jones continues from Chicago this week, and looking forward to watching the NASCAR racing. Friend of the show, Jonathan Feld, and I know Dominic's used to giving the updates on Feld. He and John Haverhill, another friend of ours, we're all going to the Cubs game Friday, going to enjoy Wrigleyville. And then we'll be at the track Saturday and Sunday for the Xfinity and the Cup race. And I'm looking forward to the music festival too, and just taking it all in, this historic event, and just enjoying all of it. And then be back here for the 4th of July. Last year, David and I, we went out with his boys to go watch fireworks. We got a show to do next week, so I don't know if we're going to be seeing fireworks, but we'll figure it out one way or the other. There will be fireworks this weekend, though, in Chicago. So.
Absolutely, there will be. Hey, before we jump off here, want to give a shout out to some of my sponsors last week: AuroraWellness.com, Nottingham Tactical. Some new companies that joined us: T-Top Manufacturing, our buddy Mark Tate, Big Steel Buildings, Alarm Tech Systems. Missy and Rich Fix, Maggie's parents, Kale's Truck and Heavy Equipment. I like that hat you're wearing there, Tyler. And man, what a great group of guys that came to the race. We didn't have the best race. We threw everything at our race car during the race. Couldn't get that baby to turn in the center, but man, it was a lot of fun and had some great sponsors, and they enjoyed it. And what a fun weekend it was of racing there in Nashville.
Yeah, talked to Philip a couple times, and great guy. He fed us well, and it was awesome to have him on board on the race car this week there at Nashville Super Speedway. So shout out to those guys at Kale's Truck and Heavy Equipment out of South Carolina, national company, doing a great job, and glad to have them on the race car this past week. We got to put the checkered flag out on this episode. As always, subscribe to the show. New episodes out each and every week on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you listen to podcasts. Also on YouTube as well. Like, subscribe, turn on notifications so you never miss a moment. Leave us a 5-star review, or don't leave us one at all. And follow us on social media, Twitter and Facebook at Star Podcast. You can also hit us up in the email inbox, davidstarpodcast@gmail.com. For Roy, Dominic, and David, I'm Tyler Jones saying so long. Thanks for joining us. Have a great 4th of July weekend, and we'll see you next week here on Let's Go Racing.